with all of our meetings. By the way, it's nice to see some new faces to our meetings. Appreciate it. Welcome. I'm going to start with the acknowledgement of treaties of peace and friendship. We would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq peoples. This territory is covered by the treaties of peace and friendship, which Wolastoqiyik, Mi'kmaq, and Passamaquoddy peoples first signed with the British Crown in 1726. The treaties did not deal with surrender of lands and resources, but in fact recognized Mi'kmaq Wolastoqiyik title and established the rules for what was to be an ongoing relationship between nations. Thank you. Next is the oath of office. We do hereby accept the office of council and will diligently, faithfully, and impartially discharge to the best of our ability the duties of the office as may be imposed upon us by law. Next is the moment of reflection for those in our region who have passed away since the last regular meeting. And we have Ellis Kenneth Pettigrew of Seaside, Rose Boulay of Beldoon, Marinus Villamus de Groot. Nick, am I close with that? I hope so. Formerly of Jacob River, and Anita Lapointe of Lorne. So if we could have a moment of silence. Thank you. Next is the adoption of the agenda. Do we have any changes?
I'd like to add 2 things to the agenda.
We can't add at the meeting.
So why are you asking if it's going to be amended then?
No, I didn't ask amended. I said any changes, any deletions. We can't add as per our procedural bylaw.
Okay, well, that brings me then to my next question, because as per the procedural bylaw, in order to get something onto the agenda, it has to be submitted before the deadline, and it has to have an attachment with both of my items did, and you removed them. So I'm just wondering what part of the procedural bylaw does that fall under?
Well, I can speak to that.
Okay.
So just for some background for the people in the audience, there are two agenda items that I removed. And I removed them because of the Municipalities Act. And I'll speak to that in a minute. According to the Municipalities Act, Section 48-6A, council must consider the welfare and interests of the entire local government when making decisions. That means that you need to have information before you make a decision, which was not provided. Secondly, in the Village of Beldoon procedural bylaw, it mentions that the chairperson, which I am, cannot allow a motion if the motion is deemed to be out of order or potentially a legal issue, which in this case could be, and I don't have the specific motions in front of me, but those motions, in my opinion, allow for the potential to have legal jeopardy for council. And so I had them removed. No.
I'm thinking you may have been looking at the wrong information then, because the 2 motions that I wanted to bring was that not all of council has to have a unanimous vote to add something to the agenda, which isn't, there's no legal ramifications. And the other thing was that not all items added to the agenda must have documentation attached. And given the fact that every one of Cynthia's agenda items this evening, not one of them has an agenda, a package attached to it, I'm guessing that you don't see a problem with not having any attachments to it. So I'm not understanding why you would have a problem with changing that procedural bylaw.
Well, I just gave the reasons for it. I gave an explanation. And if you have any issue with that, you can always take your issue to the Department of Environment and Local Government. And if they come back to me and say that this needs to be on the agenda, I'll give them my case. And then if they say that this needs to go forward, then it'll go forward. But
I will definitely do that, but what I'm asking you, is what parts of the procedural bylaw are you going to be following? If you could give us a list, it would make it easier.
So we're going to move on to the vote. This is for the agenda. Either it passes or we go home. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Okay, we need a mover. Can I get a mover? Certainly.
So move, Your Worship.
Can I get a seconder?
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passed. We're moving on. All right, first up, statements of conflict of interest. If any members of the council have a conflict of interest, please forward them to the clerk. Then we move on to the adoption of minutes. We have a motion there to pass the minutes or to accept the minutes of the whole council of April 11th, the meeting, committee of whole meeting of April the 11th, and the special meeting of April 21st, and the regular meeting of April 25th. Do we have a mover?
I move M 2022-05-16-78, that the minutes of the Committee of Whole Council meeting of April 11, 2022, the special meeting of April 21st, 2022, and the regular meeting of April 25th, 2022 be adopted as presented.
Do we have a seconder?
I'll second it.
On the question, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passed. Business arising from the minutes. We don't have any presentations, petitions, or delegations, I believe. So now we move on to statements by members of council. And it starts with me. I just wanted to introduce to you in the audience, for those who may not recognize, a lot of you do, Chris Kingston, who is going to be our interim CAO until we choose a full-time CAO. And hopefully that's going to happen before the fall sets in. Want to thank Chris. Had an incredible week last week. Did a fantastic job. Village of Beldoon, I'm very lucky to have him, and his performance last week was incredible. So I'm going to pass it on to him for you to say a few words, but I would also ask if you would just perhaps also thank the City of Bathurst for the work that they did last week.
Well, thank you, Mayor. As I had mentioned to council when they came a courting, is that I'm in my 70th or 73rd tour around the sun, so I'm not looking for a full-time job, but I've been working for the Village of Beldoon since I retired from the town of Dalhousie, doing their major purchases and refits, and always enjoyed being here. I enjoy the community. I really like the community, actually, and the welcome that I always feel when I come here. So, and as well, City of Bathurst has been sitting in my office looking after some critical issues that we had this week, and I really appreciate the help of Todd Pettigrew, the CAO of the City of Bathurst, and Sonia Gauthier as well, and again for Nicole Corrier here sitting in the bench here that has helped resolve, or at least partially resolve, some of the major issues that I inherited as I came in. So I look forward to working with the village and with council, and I think it'll be an interesting journey for the next 3 months or so. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Chris. Deputy Mayor Burke.
The first item I have has to do with the scheduling for July and August. Last year, we canceled meetings in July and August. I believe that we need to look at that very closely this year. I'm not asking to have more meetings. I'm strictly asking that the meetings scheduled for July and August be respected. We do know that we will have a CAO either actively involved, or we will be at very close to the end of the term our interim CAO has agreed to do. So with that said, I believe that the meetings in July and August should stay the way they are, and that the public should be made aware of that the meetings as scheduled are moving forward, and that's the way it'll be. I see where there is a note saying that there is a training course going on the 20th of June. Well, there's no problem there. I mean, to move the meeting to the following month because of the scheduling, and, our clerk will be at that meeting or at that training. I don't have a problem with that stuff, but at the end of the day, when we cancel meetings, it disrupts everyone's schedule, and then everybody's trying to find out when they should be scheduling a meeting, and then, we're trying to make it so that everybody can be there. And my point to the whole thing is this: meetings are scheduled. Meetings should be respected in the schedule that is there so that all members of council can arrange their time and their schedule to respect those meetings. And that's my point on that issue. So I don't know if council, I don't think we need a motion to make meetings, but, I'm open to hear any ideas or suggestions from council, but that's my thoughts on the months of July and August.
Any thoughts or suggestions?
We only canceled last year, August, and that was because we had an intern as CEO starting, and that's why we wanted him to give him a chance to get used and get the files up to speed with the files. So, we only canceled the 1 month last year, and that was the reason for it.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'd just like to point out that's just one more thing in the procedural bylaw that hasn't been followed, is the dates and times of the meetings. They've been all over the place, so I wouldn't mind following that part of the procedural bylaw.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Burt?
The next item I have has to do with the roadside cleanup and addition of 3 streets. It is motion M 2022-05-16-79 that McAllister, Carr, and Mack Street be added to the roadside cleanup, and that a group of the Legion members will do these streets and receive the amount of $400 for the 3 streets.
I'll second it.
On the question? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passed unanimously. Next.
The next item I have has to do with a request that came through from Hollis Chamberlain asking for use of our arena beginning on the 15th of August. That would mean that our arena would probably have to fire up sometime in the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd of August to be ready for the 15th. I did forward to council a copy of the contract. The last contract that this group used was for a 6-week term. They are only asking for a 4-week term this time around. However, they do want to start on the 15th of August. For me personally, I look at this and I do recognize that starting at that date is difficult on our equipment within the arena. So I'm just going to read the motion and ask council if, the way they feel about it. So motion M 2022-05-16-80, that council do not accept the request from Hollis Chamberlain for opening the arena on early August 15th for a 4-week hockey school.
Can I get a seconder for that motion to get to the table?
I will second it.
Okay, this is to do not accept, correct, Deputy Mayor Burke?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so I'm going to allow council members to speak to it, and then I'm going to ask CAO Kingston to give some input on it as well. Council members?
I, like Ron, am concerned about our equipment. Our arena is not set up to run in the summer. I seen the ice being put in last year, and it was unreal, the sweat from the ice. The ice is probably not the best quality, maybe even hazardous to be used. That's my concern on that, and if the equipment did break, it would be our tax payers that would have to pay for the repairs of it. So That's my concern on opening it that early.
Anyone else?
I spoke with someone about this, and after our conversation, if we don't invest money into the arena and continuing to open it too early, we are going to pay the price in the long run. So that's why I'm not voting for it either.
Anyone else?
I agree that I have concerns too about the wear and tear on the equipment, and then given the fact, I believe that with the price that they're willing to pay, we're not even breaking even with what it's costing us to have it open and pay the employees, so it's a no-brainer for me. I won't be voting to have that open.
This was removed from, we discussed this in November during budget discussions, and we decided then that we wouldn't open the arena for the summer, so the operating season would be September 1st to May 1st. So we already had those discussions.
CEO?
Not much to add, other than the fact that I've gone through that in my career. Usually the dehumidifiers don't keep up with the ice-making apparatus, and difficult to lay the lines. Dripping continues off of the beams, contributes to an overall poor quality ice surface, and it is really hard on the equipment. The compressors never stop, so I have to agree with council.
Okay, so let's get to the vote then. All those in favor of not opening the rink as per the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Motion passed. So perhaps you can let Mr. Chamberlain know tomorrow.
The last item I have has to do with a motion to increase the purchasing power of our interim CAO. So the motion M 2022-05-16-81, that council give authorization to the CAO to purchase from any vendor to a maximum of $10,000 without having to ask council for authorization.
I'll second that.
On the question? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passed.
If I may, Your Worship, just a note. The bird sanctuary was on my agenda. I just want people to know that the CAO will speak on that later on in the agenda.
Thank you. Councillor Carrier?
We had passed a motion early on that Deputy Mayor Burke would prepare a report to include in the monthly Beldoon Messenger. It was decided with that motion that the report would be submitted to all of council prior to it being published, so that council could go over it to see if the views and opinions expressed by Mr. Burke was you know, the reflection of the majority of council or all of council. And given the fact that it has now been brought to our attention that there appears to be not enough time for council or for Deputy Mayor Burke to prepare the report and submit it to council in time for it to be published, I'm asking that the motion be rescinded because the views and expressions published in the messenger are those of Deputy Mayor Burke and not of council, because council does not get the opportunity to review, amend, agree, or disagree with anything that he's publishing. Therefore, I'd like to put forth the motion M 2022-05-16-82, that council rescind motion M 2021-12-20-221. Ron Burke, move that Deputy Mayor Ron Burke prepare a monthly information report for the messenger on the direction of council activities, seconded by Lillian Carmichael, and the motion was carried.
Do I have a seconder?
I'll second it.
On the question?
Yeah, I'd like to make a statement, if I may, Your Worship. You know, the messenger was written, at no time did I ever mention any council member's name. You know, the comments were said in all sincerity. I chose my words very carefully, and I chose them so that it was a reflection of council, not my own personal reflection, but yes, I wrote it. But with that said, you know, if you want to take a few words out of it here and there, feel free to do so. But if you read the whole thing, you know, and I hope that the people here in the audience, if they have not read it, will go home and maybe read it sometime down the line. It's the last report that was in the Messenger. But I do understand that there are council members who have no respect for the words respect, honesty, transparency, openness. I do understand that. So with that said, let the vote fall where it may. And I'll put it this way, I have no problem continuing writing the Messenger, writing the notes, but because it's about a 4-hour process to put that message together. But with that said, if the vote goes against me writing those messages, I have no problem with that either.
Anyone else? Okay, so on the motion itself, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passed. Yeah. Councillor Robinson.
Okay, my first item, the Canadian Cancer Society holds a Relay for Life, typically every year. The last one we had in this region was 2019. Because of COVID, we haven't had relays in 2020, 21. Now we have one this year. Typically, council has donated a $500 contribution to the Relay for Life, and I'm asking for that contribution again this year. So my motion is 2022-05-1685, that council donate $500 to the Canadian Cancer Society for the Relay for Life.
I'll second it.
On the question? Now, okay, because I think someone's going to mention it. Go ahead.
It's noted here that there's supposed to be a letter of request, so I'm wondering what's,
So Councillor Carmichael, I know you worked with the donation committee before, correct? Is a letter of request
Normally,
necessary?
they do want a letter of request because, yes, we need a letter of request, but we can vote for it and then maybe the letter of request, or would it, should we vote for it before the letter of request comes in?
The relay is June 11th, so we wouldn't have another meeting till then. I can get a letter of request. I just had the request too late to get the letter of request, but
Okay, no, yeah, so
It's an
if
easy-
she agrees to have a letter of request, that'd be great.
yeah.
I guess, oh, sorry, Your Worship, if I may. You know, this isn't the first time that a request has come in for this purpose. It comes in annually. Maybe the letter of request that comes in should be one that says along the line that in the future, if we continue doing the Relay for Life, that counts, the request would be for funding, and then council wouldn't need a letter of request every time. Something along that line. I'm sure you can advise them how they should word it, and we'll take it from there.
Okay. On the motion itself, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passed.
Okay, my next item is the Municipal Asset Management Plan. CEO Ferguson had done some work on that. This is a time-sensitive issue, so the motion was to have the CAO develop a tender document for the Municipal Asset Management Plan. That's motion 2205-1686.
Before we speak to it, well, I'll get a seconder. Can I get a seconder?
I'll second it.
On the question, I would like to ask CAO Kingston to, since this is going to be in your mandate, if you could address it in some respect, if you're willing and able.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just based on my availability in the last 2 weeks, I really haven't had time to look at the documents. The documents are sitting on the desk behind me. I understand the urgency of this situation, but I really don't have enough information to put a tender together, a tender package together at this point. And I'm just requesting some time for me to come up, be able to get up to date on the asset management plan, especially, I think we're talking about phase 2, so I like that time from council to be able to bring myself up to date and talk to the proponents, and then sort of develop, I think probably it would end up as a request for proposal, not a tender. But I don't really know the subject matter, and I confess that.
I'm going to on Deputy Mayor Burke for a second. I was going to step down and speak to the issue for a minute. So the municipal asset management plan is a crucial document. We know that. CAO Kingston understands that there's money on the line with this document. I think it's reasonable to ask for some time, but not much time. So if that means a tabling, I don't know, Councilor Robinson, what your idea is on that, how you address that, but I can tell you that this is going to be expedited.
Yeah,
So-
it's a lot of funding is tied up with that document, so I know CO Ferguson had sent out requests for proposals. There's an issue with what was received, but I don't want to table it just because then it puts it off for another month. So if CO Kingston can, as you said, expedite, I don't know, I don't know if there's somebody he can reach out to find those documents, or, but I would like it worked on.
If I may, Your Worship, just to maybe take it to the next level, the motion reads develop a tender. Maybe we should call that develop a tender/proposal. That way there, whatever the CAO needs to do, whether it be as a tender or a proposal, he is free to proceed with dealing with the document.
The two bids we got, or the two documents we received, that seemed to be a problem. I'm thinking if we can find those documents and look over them and maybe take the lowest bidder. I know that the prices were pretty close, so I think all the information was there. I don't want to, like, it's just going to slow things down if we start back from scratch. So I'm not sure where those documents are. I'm sure they're somewheres in the, he has them, okay. So yeah, so that's what I was thinking. If we could look at that, maybe we could call a special meeting in a few days or next week to be able to vote for this, to who would get it, if that would be okay with the rest at the table here.
I have a serious issue with the two proposals that you're talking about. There's an issue with those. I'll leave it at that, and I can discuss it maybe later with CO Kingston, but I have concerns about those two documents, as I've expressed to council previously.
So should we table this for tonight and call a special meeting in a week's time after you speak to CEO Kingston?
I'll step down again. Well, there's a third party that's involved, and the third party is legal, as we know. Legal has been brought in. In terms of having the information and just dissecting it and trying to give it advice and opinion. So, I'm just looking at the motion here for a second. I think you can still go through with the motion, perhaps amend it as Deputy Mayor Burke suggested. That gives CAO Kingston time and direction, and then perhaps to speaking to Councillor Carmichael's suggestion that soon after we would meet. So I think all of that, if you amend the motion in that way, then I think that takes care of almost everybody's issues.
May
I will
just-
make, sorry.
May I just add one thing? Maybe as CAO, Kingston can look at the documents that were received and then see if there's actually a problem with those documents. I don't know if there actually is, so if you would take a few minutes when you see them, and then perhaps it's not as big of a thing as we think it is, or
So I will make a motion that, that the motion be amended with the word tender/proposal added.
Can I get a seconder for that, for the amendment?
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Okay, motion passed.
Okay, my next item is the accessibility for the Jacket River Campground. In our previous budget meetings, we had discussed, put aside money for an engineering proposal or design to make the campground beach area accessible. I looked at some of the engineering companies that we've worked with, and Englobe, during their presentation, had talked about accessibility projects that they worked on, and they do a lot of environmental work. So I think with the bank of the beach and stuff, that might become an issue. So I have motion 2022-05-1687 that council have Englobe do design work for accessibility stairs and ramps to the Jack River Campground.
Are you putting forward a motion?
I just read the motion.
Seconder,
So moved.
on the question?
right now, we need to do our strategic planning session before we spend any more money. This is not budgeted.
It was budgeted.
Was it budgeted?
Yep. It's in the community
but-
development, beautification, and
Okay.
rehabilitation
Just
plans.
one at a time, please.
Are we allowed to just name out a person to do it, or do we have to put out the tenders or the bids for that job? To name out a specific engineering firm? I would prefer to see tenders go out to different areas here, to the people that we have closer. Englobe, I believe, is not located here in the area, like Pederash Bears, right? Aren't they from Fredericton?
I think their main office is in Fredericton. They have engineers throughout the province. I think that was one of the things that he had said was they were developing in the process of developing an office in this area. Roy Consultant submitted a design that didn't work. That's why I proposed another engineering company.
I was just going to say, did we not have someone put something forward previously?
I believe C.O. Ferguson had Roy's Consultant do a sketch of a proposal. They didn't do any of the actual design work. When you're talking about accessibility to what they had proposed was a platform overlooking the beach and a set of stairs. That doesn't really address the accessibility issues with that campground. So Englobe had specifically said that they did accessibility projects. That's why I proposed them. You can put it out to tender, but it's within the threshold of not going to tender.
Stepping down. We have to be careful about, obviously, procurement, right? And I'm looking at what that work would be, and perhaps the work falls under the threshold of going out, but I'm not certain. So I'm just wondering if it would be wise for maybe CEO Kingston to come up with some prospective costs to see if it would work. Because if it's over the threshold and we've only offered it to one company, then we're obviously not following procurement laws. And the threshold's pretty small.
Yeah, at this point, we're only asking for designs, not the actual engineering of the site, right? So they're just design fees at this point. And the reason I want to push it quickly is because you don't know when they're going to be available within the season. They should be there during the summer months. And then we probably won't be building anything until next year, but it gives us a chance to look for the accessibility grants, and I don't know what the deadlines are for those grants, right?
Anyone else with any points of view? Okay. Did we get a seconder for that? I can't remember.
I'll second it, Your Worship.
We've gone to questions, so on to the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Okay, so we've got 2 in favor, 3 opposed. Councillor Robinson, Councillor Burke in favor, Councillor Tara McDonnell, Councillor Carmichael, and Councillor Carrier opposed. So that particular motion is defeated. Next.
Okay, my next issue is the Port of Beldoon. Council had appointed a member of the public to the Board of Directors for the Port of Beldoon in March. That individual has not heard from the port. We did have a meeting with a representative from the Port of Beldoon, but they've not submitted any documentation about that appointment. So I would like to see the CAO contact the Port of Beldoon and with a reaffirmation that we have made an appointment to the board. And then if they have an issue, it should be submitted in writing to council as to why that member was not appointed.
Before I get to CEO Kingston, any members of council wish to respond?
I'm just going to add that the information I received from the port was that our legal, Andre Daig, was looking at that. So maybe our CAO could begin with our legal, asking the question, what's going on there, and getting some information from him.
Anyone else?
Just about 4:30, I received correspondence from Andre Daig, and I didn't bring it forward. I just didn't have time to add it to anything. Didn't realize that actually that this was coming up. The board, the port board does have a problem with your delegate, and that information, I can get it now if you want to hear the results from Andre.
Well, personally, there's no motion on this. It's just information. So
Right.
maybe you could send it out in the email tomorrow.
I'll do that.
Yeah, that's the thing to do. Is that it for comments on that? Oh, sorry. Okay, administration reports. CEO Kingston.
Yes, the first one is Metal Fab. Council would be aware that Metal Fab didn't receive confirmation of the purchase of the fire rescue van. As a result, we lost or missed the production date for the cab and chassis. And if I can find that here. Metal Fab is asking that at a minimum, we order the cab and chassis and put it in line, and that any increase in pricing will only be able to get to us by October of this year. So basically, the production of that rescue van is stalled, and I'm asking council to consider at least that cab and chassis be put in on the production line, and that I would be able to advise them in October of any, if any, price increase.
The motion was made to approve that rescue van. At the end of the day, council recognizes the necessity of the unit. So for me personally, I don't know how the rest of council feels, but I think I would say move forward with that recommendation and have it put into the scheduling, because the longer we delay, the longer the schedule will be.
I agree, we should move forward with it.
Anyone else?